Thank you, Natalie. Appreciate the opportunity to share this safety moment. And it really has to do with kind of our topic today, fatigue and kind of mental health and just awareness of yourself, your team members, people you're working with, your clients and your customers. So this is a lesson on vigilance and fatigue, which nearly cost my life in 1996. So many of you don't know, but many years ago, in a younger version of myself, I worked in law enforcement as a member of a counter narcotics and terrorism operation team. I was their tactical medical operator, and during a high risk hostage incident, a simple oversight in my equipment readiness check and safety protocol almost led me to falling off a 15-story high rise building during an incident. So the scenario kind of plays into the storyline of how it happened, and it's compounding. So it's little things on top of little things that just added into a bigger incident, where what we do every day with our safety protocols and just our daily good catches prevents these little things from compounding and turning into something bigger. So the scenario was it was an extended operational period exceeding 16 hours of readiness, stretching from the afternoon to the early morning hours. For 10 of those hours, we were staged and secured to the rooftop anchor waiting orders to breach a exterior balcony window if negotiations failed. So we got a 2 hour downtime during this negotiations, and where I unhooked my primary anchor point and put it on a secondary anchor point, so I could just kind of take a rest and get out of my gear. During that time frame, we had a 1 minute readiness to execute the breach, and during that downtime, I just disconnected my primary anchor point from my harness and attached it to a secondary anchor point on my harness, which is only designated to hold equipment, not my body weight. So in the rush to kind of get to this execution of this breach, I not reconnected my primary anchor point, and just before going over the edge, our tactical safety lead noticed my harness configuration was wrong, and he prevented me from going over the edge. So super like um, stressful environment, simple mistake. But what we did is we always do a hot wash after every incident. Luckily and thankfully, this guy was on the ball during the safety moment. He was our last safety check before we went over the edge during the execution. So I would not be here today giving this story if he was not there. I wouldn't be with my family. I wouldn't be with my kids. So a lot of like impact down the line. So the critical error was the near safety miss highlighted several critical factors. One was compliance and protocol adherence, right? Even experienced operators can deviate from established safety protocols under pressure, and strict adherence and protocols exist monthly and for exact reasons like this, right? So we have our protocols, and I'm one of those guys too that I don't like being a rule follower, right? I don't like being told what to do all the time, but there are a lot of good reasons why we have rules to keep everyone safe, including myself. Um, there's the other thing is we call it work fatigue, and fatigue that impairs judgment and motor skills. Research has always showed that any operations or someone being awake for 17 consecutive hours produces a cognitive impairment equivalent to a 0.5% blood alcohol level, which really cognitively you don't think you're operating that way, but that's the norm, right? So the second one or the third one is equipment familiarity. Knowing your equipment is enough. Under fatigue, even familiar tasks become error prone. Secondary anchor point was my part of my standard gear. Making a mistake felt normal for me during the exhausted state, and if it wasn't for the prompt kind of insight of my tactical leader, that we could have had a greater incident. So that goes into like communication and safety checks, right? So our team tactical safety lead intervention saved my life. Pre-execution safety checks by a second set of eyes are non-negotiable on our team, and particularly over extended periods of time. So think about that just in your normal workday. Like if you're working a project with your team and you work through lunch break, right? Everyone gets a little hangry, then you're kind of productive that way. You're not as productive. And then at the end of the day, like if you got to come back the next day, does everyone want to work that way again, knowing that, man, we might not get lunch again? So that just think about that, like when you're setting your teams up for success rather than failure. So, and then the fall protection. So the incident underscored that fall protection systems only work when properly configured. A harness is worthless if it's not used correctly. So understanding operational fatigue, night shift carries 30% higher injury rate than day shifts. 12-hour shifts increase injury risk by 37%. Workers sleeping less than 6 hours are 70% more likely to be involved in an accident. And I know for me, like 6 hours is like a good day. So, so, so just kind of take that into heed. Like we're coming into Wednesday, so we have Thursday, Friday left, and still got 2 more days to work. Shift work, prolonged alert. We recommend your vigilance fatigue is a critical safety threat caused by prolonged high stress alertness and results in impaired judgment, slower reaction time, and increased risks. And the biggest thing I think, which kind of impacts here, is the normalization of deviation, right? Knowing that you're making a mistake or not following the protocol, safety protocol all the way, just because you didn't get caught, just because I didn't fall off the roof edge that day doesn't mean that I didn't learn a lesson. So just understanding that um, safety and increased speed or efficiency also makes dangerous behaviors routine. So normalizing, disconnecting safety protocols are very impactful in a negative way. Cognitive performance. So fatigue leads to decision-making errors with likelihoods of escalating rather than de-escalating. So think about that like with coworkers or with working with your contractors or customers. Um, and for this, kind of my takeaway, and I'm sharing with you, is this incident started me on a journey long, long time ago to understand how operational fatigue affects operational readiness and positive outcomes in high risk events. I'm currently doing my PhD dissertation in shift work syndrome and its effects on social marginalization, driven by the knowledge that I've gained from that night and that incident. So the lesson is clear. No mission is so urgent that we can't afford to skip safety protocols. Fatigue kills, and it does make experienced professionals believe they can operate safely when their cognitive systems are already compromised. So my life was saved by a teammate who understood the truth and insisted that one final check before execution would provide me the ability to come home to my family safely and share the story with you.